को विचारों को रखें। राजेश जी।
नहीं, धीरज जी को बोलना है। अतनु भाई, धीरज जी को पहले बोलना है शायद। आवर जनरल सेक्रेटरी विल स्पीक, डॉक्टर धीरज कुमार सिंह जी।
हाँ, माफी चाहूंगा, मैं थोड़ा सा देखने में मैं माफी चाहूंगा। सो आई रिक्वेस्ट डॉक्टर धीरज कुमार सिंह, द जनरल सेक्रेटरी of Alumni Association of JNU, to deliver the secretarial address. So subsequently, the presidential remark and the special address, presidential remark, introductory remarks would be delivered by Rajesh Kumar ji. So please, Dr. Dhiraj Kumar.
Yes. Namaskar. Good evening, and again a warm welcome to all the delegates, friends, eminent guests, and respected people associated with this global webinar. Alumni Association of JNU, in collaboration with Organization for Diaspora Initiative, Antarashtriya Sahyog Parishad, BRICS Chambers of Commerce and Industry, and Central University of Gujarat, has organized this webinar on another important aspect for which our Indian government was lauded and appreciated across the globe for their steps taken to save the Indian diaspora spread in various parts of the country. To grace this occasion, we have amongst us our chief guests, various eminent dignitaries and speakers. I would like to personally thank Sri V. Muralidharan sir, who is our Honorable Minister of State for External Affairs and Parliamentary Affairs, Government of India, for taking his precious time out for this webinar amidst his busy schedule, as we all are aware that the parliamentary session are about to start next week. My humble thanks to other important speakers and members present today. Dr. Pramod Kumar, sir, he is the Registrar of JNU. Professor Mohan Gautamji, Chancellor and President, European University of West and East Netherlands. Professor R.S. Dubeji, he is the Vice Chancellor of Central University of Gujarat. Ambassador Anup Kumar Mudra, RSP. Dr. Annapurna Pandeji, she is a professor from University of California, USA. Dr. BBL Madhukarji, he is the Director General of BRICS Chambers of Commerce and Industry. Dr. Alok Chakrabalji, professor from Saurashtra University, Gujarat. Professor Rajnish Kumar Shuklaji is the Vice Chancellor, Mahatma Gandhi Antarashtriya Hindi Vishwavidyalaya, Wardha. Professor Ajay Dubeji, President, ODI and Chairperson, Center for African Studies, SIS JNU. Dr. Nirja Arun Gupta ji, Director, Study Abroad Program, Gujarat University, Ahmedabad. Ms. Michelle Thomas, who is a professional from Melbourne, Australia. And many, and our very own Dr. Atanu Mahapatra ji, Chairperson, Center for Diaspora Studies, Central University, Gujarat, and Head of Organizing Committee of this global webinar. I, Dr. Dheeraj Singh, representing AJ as the General Secretary, would like to tell that our JNU is the official alumni association of JNU, and will always remain proud to be representing our JNU's 80,000 plus alumni network spread across the globe, who have not only made their alma mater proud with their accomplishments, but also have been influential and have been doing immense contributions in all spheres of life, be it research and development, science and technology, health, administration, industries, humanities, policy, political leadership, philanthropy, social outreach, and many more over the last 5 decades. It's important to mention here that in these moments of monumental crisis, we miss to think about the Indian diaspora who lives and work abroad, as also the large chunk of Indian citizens stuck overseas for various reasons like tourism, business tour, official assignments, seminar, conference, and most importantly, students studying in various global institutions and universities. The Indian government embarked on Vande Bharat mission to rescue and bring back Indians stranded in various foreign countries. Given the coronavirus global pandemic crisis, media lauded the Indian government's decision to eventually bring back home lakhs of stranded Indians from across the globe. While the entire country has been reeling under the COVID-19 pandemic, the government, including the esteemed Ministry of External Affairs, has done a commendable job of taking preemptive and timely measures to deal with the century's worst human crisis in the form of global pandemic COVID-19 and touching the lives of lakhs of Indian citizens. To conclude, I would like to say that the collaboration between Alumni Association of JNU, Antarashtriya Sahyog Parisar, Organization for Diaspora Initiative, Central University of Gujarat, BRICS Chambers of Commerce and Industries will surely go a long way to provide some valuable inputs to the government of India to handle the Indian diaspora across the globe, which is the largest in the world. It is a matter of our Indian brothers and sisters abroad, and we can go way beyond limits to help them in all ways possible. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat. धन्यवाद.
Thank you, Dheeraj ji, for your secretarial remarks. So now I request President of AJ Alumni Association from JNU, Mr. Rajesh Kumar Singh, Rajesh Ranjan ji, to please deliver the your introductory address. Rajesh ji.
Am I audible, Atanu ji?
Yeah, you are very much audible.
Namaskar. As President of Alumni Association of JNU, I welcome you all to the 8th edition of our webinar series at JNU on government's response towards Indian diaspora, Pravasi Bharatiya, during COVID-19, being organized in association with various eminent institutions like Organization for Diaspora Initiatives, Antarashtriya Sahyog Parishad, BRICS, GRC India, and Central University of Gujarat. It's our proud privilege to have Honorable Union Minister of State for External Affairs as well as Parliamentary Affairs, Government of India, Sri V. Muralidharan ji, amongst us. Besides, we have several eminent academicians, distinguished panelists, and speakers from India and abroad, which include Professor Ramashankar Dubey ji, Central University of Gujarat Vice Chancellor, Professor Rajneesh Shukla ji, Vice Chancellor of Mahatma Gandhi Antarashtriya Hindi Vishwavidyalaya, Professor Mohan Gautam ji, Dr. Annapurna Pandey ji, Miss Michelle Thomas, Dr. BBL Madhukar ji, Dr. Alok Chakrawal ji, Dr. Nirja Gupta ji, retired diplomat, and my friend Sri Anup Budgal ji, my friends turned professors Dr. Ajay Dubey ji, Dr. Atanu Mahapatra, and our own registrar, JNU registrar, Dr. Pramod Kumar ji. As we gather here to deliberate on Government of India's response to our Indian diaspora, especially the Vande Mataram mission, which is said to be the country's largest repatriation program. This was launched on May 7, 2020 to repatriate Indian stranded in various parts of the globe. As per the Ministry of External Affairs released last week, a couple of weeks back, around 15 lakh Indians have returned to India from abroad in view of the coronavirus pandemic since the launch of Vande Bharat mission. While the Government of India's evacuation efforts need to be lauded, given the COVID-19 pandemic, it would surely go a long way in building confidence among Indians settled abroad and creating a more inclusive India. Besides, there is a growing feeling among all of us that the Indian diaspora needs to be engaged in building the nation. It's highly significant as India has the largest diaspora in the world, pegged at 17.5 million, spread across 146 countries, which means India is the leading country of origin for international migrants, as per the United Nations International Migrant Stock 2019 report published on September 18, 2019. I think it's our responsibility to keep the Indian diaspora settled abroad hooked to their motherland. We need to instill in them a feeling of being at home despite being thousands of kilometers away from it. Keeping the diaspora attuned to the Indian ethos and Indian sanskar and reinforcing the cultural underpinning of our motherland should be our guiding principle, a foundation to govern the relationship between India and PIOs and NRIs. Before I conclude, I would like to make a special mention about our friends, Dr. Atanu Mahapatra of Central University of Gujarat, Dr. Dheeraj Singh ji, our General Secretary, Dr. Mahib ji of IGNU, Dr. Bhargav Mitra, Dr. Priyavrata ji from Sydney, and Dr. Yukteswar ji, who couldn't join us for some reasons, for their unequivocal support, unstinted support. Besides support and secretarial and technical support from Mr. Biju Philip, Mr. Amit Saharan, Mr. Kuldeep Pandey, Mr. Satendra Rawat. I'm sure you would agree that these webinars would convey the world many positive steps we have taken, notwithstanding COVID-19 pandemic, which would take our country, India, forward to becoming Atmanirbhar Bharat. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat. Namaskar. Yes, Ataruji. Tanuji, you're mute.
Yeah, thank you, Rajesh, for your very kind words, and which has covered almost all aspects. And so, to moving forward, I think now we will start after this address by the officials of alumni associations and also the other associate partners. So I think we will move forward. So before it, let me uh, put forth few points. As we know, COVID-19, a global pandemic, originated from China, which is a years-long expansion policy of China. It's a years long. It's not now, it's years long. And it has reached to maximum countries. And that has yielded a very, very, not only a human impact, it has also impacted the economy also. So not only during this corona crisis, Indian citizens, Indian immigrants, including students, migrant workers, professionals, and also other people of Indian origins, or maybe some immigrants who had been for different medical facilities, they were stranded. And Indian government, under the leadership of, no doubt, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who is a popular Prime Minister, so has successfully, and the Minister of External Affairs has very successfully started the Vande Bharat mission, which has not only confined to only air route, it has included all the routes, both land and water, as well as air. And in this sixth phase, it has covered more, I think nearly 10 lakhs people have been evacuated. Similarly, within the country also for internal migrants, more than 60 lakhs people have been evacuated, have been transported to their respective places. And this is a huge, I think, if we consider it, I think such kind of timely response by the present government is really, really adorable. And I think it's not that easy to just say 10 lakhs of people have been evacuated, but it needs lot many involvement. First is diplomatic involvement, good foreign, good diplomatic relations with foreign, with all neighboring as well as other countries. So such already the I think under the leadership of Modi, it has been already set as far as foreign policy and diplomatic relationships are concerned. So it was under this leadership of Modi, it has been received, and our foreign policy, and we become such a global aspirant power. It has quite visible, and finally, with such effective foreign policy and diplomatic relationship, we could succeed in evacuating more than 10 lakhs Indian standard citizens. And the process is on, and I think this will continue. The question remains how we can go further and what would be the next. So to deliberate on such issues and some important issues and the future course of action, we have a very distinguished panels, and I think to deliver the first keynote address, I think we have Professor Mohan Gautam, who is the Chancellor and President of European University of West East Netherlands. And he is a Indian, people of Indian origin, Ushe card holder, but a Dutch nationality, Dutch citizenship. And is the Vice Global President, SM University of Netherlands and Seoul, South Korea. And he was the Chairman of Scientific Commission of International Commission on Museums and Cultural Heritage.
हाँ नहीं तो आप सब जानते हो, सब रियलिटी जानते हैं आप. अब उसमें रास्ता यही है कि कोई तरह से करा के अब आपको.
And he held many such important academic positions in different universities, and also European member of Global Origin of People from Indian Origin, GOPIO, and European representative of the Indian Diaspora Council, IDC, New York, and held many positions and has a long career, more than I think 40-45 years career of working on diaspora issue, who is basically an anthropologist. and he has been kind enough to grace such kind of webinars whenever we organize in India, in my department or in India elsewhere. And he has been to many university, Indian university, to deliver lecture and share his expertise and views. So in this occasion, I welcome Professor Mohan Gautam, and I request you, without wasting time, I request you to please deliver your keynote address. Thank you, Professor Gautam.
Thank you very much. You can listen me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I can.
Okay, that's very nice. First of all, I would like to thank to this webinar organizers who have taken this step to look at government responses towards the Indian diaspora, especially during the time of COVID-19. Now, of course, first of all, I would like to say thank to Dr. Atnu Mahapatra because he contacted me, and I am very thankful to him. He is the head of the Diaspora Studies section of the Central University of Gujarat, and I think he has been very kind to contact me, and I'm very thankful to him. Then, of course, there are 5 organizations or 5 or 6 organizations which have organized this webinar. And I would like also to thank all the organizations because they have taken such a good step to look at the government responses towards the Indian diaspora. Then there are certain people which I must thank according to protocol. I would like to thank to Shri Muralidharan ji, who is the Honorable Minister of State for External Affairs and Parliamentary Affairs in Delhi. Then I would like also to thank the Vice Chancellor of CUG, Ravi Shankar Duveji, Ram Shankar Duveji, and then of course the Vice Chancellor of Wardha University, Professor Rajesh Shukla ji. And then of course there are many people, especially I would like to thank to my friend Professor Ajay Dubey, because we know each other for a long time. Of course I know many people, but then the time will be wasted because what I want to say I would not have sufficient time. There's a one thing is very good. Yesterday and another conference finished, and which was also connected with the COVID-19. A colleague of Dr. Atnu Mahapat organized it, Dr. Naresh Kumar, and there are also many organizations, and we tried to work out certain things and got some new ideas. How can we look at the migrants who have come to India and then who are outside India, the migration, and in which way they are affected by this COVID-19 virus. This is another thing. So this is a supplementary to things which are going on. Now, I would like to say here certain things. I mean, I would divide my whole speech in 2-3 sections. One section would be on India. Second section would be looking at the COVID-19. And the third section would be to give you an example of European countries. And then finally, I might give some recommendations what we could do, in which way we can help the government of India to look at the things and then help the people and the social welfare program and economically, sociologically and psychologically to give them an idea that they are not alone, they are connected to India. Now about India, well, one of the most important thing is, and I think I am very thankful in a way, the last Prime Minister, Shri Atal Bihari Vajpayee, and I knew him from 70s, that he at the end of 90, the 90s decade of last century, got this idea with the help of people that there should be an Indian diaspora. And I think this was a start where a high commission was created, high-level commission was created, and where there were the Lakshmimal Singhvi, Shri Baleshwar Agrawal ji, Shri Harmat ji, and of course, one of the most important person was who played a big role, the Secretary of the External Affairs, Jagdish Sharma. Anyway, so it started, and then what was most important, that after Chinese diaspora, suddenly Indian diaspora became well known. And then Pravasi Bharati Divas started in 2003. I think biggest numbers of indentured laborers, the generations and the NRI, they all came to India because they wanted to be connected with the roots. So they thought India has given us a sort of identity that we are a part of India, and we can ask India, and India can ask us many things economically, socially, etc., etc. Now, this was not only the Pravasi Bharati Divas, but there was also something very important. The Ministry of Indian Affairs was also created, and that we started looking at separately from the Ministry of External Affairs or about the Indian problems. And then, of course, one of the first things was that this high-level commission went to most of the countries, and they talked all sorts of people, and which brought them together. So the people thought India is taking care of us. India government is taking care of us, and we should reciprocate to help them whichever way. After all, India is a land of our forefathers, as they said, Aja Aji. Anyway, so things started, and the only thing was then two terms came, the NRI and PIOs. PIO was given to the indentured laborers who started in the 1834 to 1916, and the NRI were those who went after 1950 for studies, for education, for trainings, etc., etc. And it became a sort of a very good field that these two started talking to each other, thinking after all they have met two brothers. But there are certain things also happened, that most of the people were belonging to many languages, South Indian languages, North Indian languages, because India is a land of at least five families of the languages and the culture. So some sort of understanding came after all. We are a part of the subcontinent India, and then we are geographically one person, and so we should try to develop a nation of Indian consisting of cultures and languages, and a process did start at that time. What India has done now, because we are looking at the government response, India did try, even last year I did know they tried to help the people from various countries, and the planes were sent there, and the people came over here. Now also, especially from the Middle Eastern country, there are a lot of Indian migrants have come here, and they are also a part of Indian diaspora, and they are also being taken care by the government of India. Of course, the problem comes that we have to deal with all sorts of language. Communication becomes a problem. It's not only English, because many people who went to many countries, they were a sort of unskilled or semi-skilled people, and they did not have command on the languages. But anyway, something was done, and the India government did try to develop some sort of a relationship with them. But then suddenly certain thing happened, and that was this year. And there, I think the role of India government is very important. I was also in February to India, and 15th of February, I returned back to Netherlands. At that time, it was not known, but suddenly it became known that coronavirus is spreading not only in India, in many countries. And then, of course, lockdown started. physical distances or the social distances started, that one should talk to each other at least a distance of 1.5 meter. And then, of course, then the mask also started. You should wash hands, etc., etc. So many things started. And India government also did all whatever they could do. But for them also, all these things were new. I mean, if I know, I mean, there have been all the time big epidemics in India also. But suddenly, no one thought, and it started from Wuhan, from China, as it is called. So, socially speaking, the families were completely disrupted. They could not have the rituals, they could not have the temple worship, they could not have even the festivals, and they could not have the birth, death, all these sanskars which are a part of Indian Hindu family, they could not have it. And so the India government did start some sort of disciplinary approach that we have to think in those lines, otherwise we are lost and people will die. And of course, now India is the second country after United States. So many problems are in India because of COVID-19. Anyway, but what is more important here, that the India had a big problem, and the problem was that India is a subcontinent and divided into many languages and many cultures. Of course, the only cultures and languages one can see in a family. People cannot go everywhere and can see it. They can read, but those are the students. But during the lockdown, the schoolings and the universities, everything was closed. And in that way, the people could not work and could not meet each other. Now, these have been the problem, but you have to divide two ways: rural problems and the urban problems. I think urban problems became more serious than the rural problems. And that's why people started migrating, walking, and people died. And then in that case, we could not stop the COVID-19. Of course, India did try, but question is, when you have such a big country, such a big population, divided into so many languages and culture, it becomes difficult to communicate with them. But India did try. The social medias, radios, TVs, everywhere, India did try that they should understand the COVID problem, and if they can follow certain discipline, we are sure that the COVID would be over. Now, having said this thing, I would try to now give you an example of European countries, and Netherlands is a country which I can give the example. One of the biggest problem of India was, and India still has, we haven't got a medical system. We haven't got the medical insurance. Whereas if we look at the Netherlands, everything is, I mean, all the people are insured. If they go to France, if they go to Germany or wherever, through the computer, one can find out what type of sickness or diseases if he had. The doctor will find out and give them all the medicine. When in Netherlands this thing is started, it's a very interesting, because in Netherlands has about 1,600 intensive care unit beds, where you have the complete system of ventilators for breathing, etc., etc. And so they could go. And I must tell you, even the Indians who are the NRI and PIO, both are here. They stayed here. They did not want to go back to India. They did not want to go back to Suriname, because Suriname is the country, the Dutch Guyana, from where the many Indians came here, because they were medically secured. And once you are secured medically, then you need not to spend money. Another thing was in this country, and that was also in Germany, if you haven't got a job, whether you are a student or whether you are a working laborer or whatever, then the government will help you by giving you subsidies. And subsidy for living is about 900 euro. And 900 euro is a very big subsidy. Anyway, So one of the biggest things which has developed here and which has also developed in India, and that is through the unemployment, India did not have all the subsidies. You developed a psychological implications. People started thinking, well, I can't do anything. I am isolated. I have no friends. I have nothing. And even those people who went to see the elderly people, they could only see through the glasses. Not any, and once they died, then of course they were also not shown the funerals or the cremation or whatever it is. So this was the problem in the European country, which also I think continued in a way, but less way in India. Of course, universities has been closed, education systems for the primaries and secondary, they were also be closed. Recreation centers were closed, and still they are closed. I mean, now slowly the schools are starting, but everyone is working very hard to have vaccines, because without vaccine, I do not know for how long we have to stay. This is with India, this is with the state, this is with Brazil. Brazil also suffered a lot, and that means that we have to have a certain discipline, and discipline is to use the mask for the time being, to use the hand washing, that's also necessary, and not to live in dirt, because the general statistics have come. Those people who have been poor, those who did not get anything, they suffered a lot because they could not take care, and they got this infection of intensive COVID-19. Now, another problem for India is here, that everything is okay. Indians are not interested to go back, neither from Germany, not unless until like there have been the marriages or the death or certain festivals when Indians NRI wanted to see their families, they could not because aviation has been stopped. Now, this has given the psychological problems to many Indians. They always think, damn it, what's going to happen with my family? So, this is another thing. But now, another problem which I think we will have to see in Netherlands, in Germany, in France, there are thousands, I'm using the word thousands, of illegal migrants, Indians. Now, they can't do anything. Of course, once they are in Netherlands, then they are taking care, they are giving the money, and they are giving the accommodation to live on. But in many other countries, it is not possible. Now, what could be done for this illegal unemployed laborer? This is a problem which I have always in my mind. Now, I think the best way would be that somewhere we should think that they are our people, Indian people, and we should help them. And how can you help them? The only way is that the Indian embassies, who are, sorry to say, not so much interested about the Indians here, except if they have a friendship, then it's a different story. So I think Indian embassies should do a lot to contact these people, to develop some sort of feeling that they are not alone, they are a part of India, like it happens with the Japanese people. So this should be done. And secondly, which I feel is very interesting about the government point of view of India, we should understand the Indian also. Embassy people are not trained in cultural cultural democracy, not sorry, cultural diplomacy. And once they do not know the culture, what happens? I tell you very frankly, I have seen 40-50 years here in Netherlands. When an ambassador comes or even a secretary comes, he doesn't know the culture. 6 months are wasted and money is wasted. Then they try to learn slowly what a culture of this country is. Then after a year, they start thinking we have to go back. So again, the interest is lost. So what I'm trying to say, that the Indian government should develop some sort of cultural diplomacy for the staff of the embassies or high commission offices, so that they should understand the Indians. And once they understand the Indians, I'm sure we can move further. The only thing is here that Indians, whosoever live, whichever the Indian areas, and they want to go back, if they want to go back, then we should know what type of Indians they are, because they are not the copy of India. They are different. They have developed many traits and elements in their culture, like Hinduism also accepted many things and made it Hindu culture. The same thing they are also doing, and they are developing things in their own way. What we should do from the government of India, that in those areas where the Indians are living, if they are producing certain things, I think we should buy them, and we should also sell our things with them, because they are our lobby. Indians are our lobby, because tomorrow when they're in United States, United Nations, the language thing comes in language. Who's going to be our lobby? The Indians are India. I think these are the things which I can say. So I would like to thank you,
Thank you,
all
sir.
my friends who are there. I think we have to look at the things differently, and it
Thank
is
you, sir.
not so easy. And then the implementation becomes the biggest problem. Thank
Thank
you
you,
very
sir.
much for giving me a time, and I am sure I could say something. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your good, wonderful keynote address. I think now we should move, because the Honorable Minister has to go, because as I said in the beginning, that he has been entrusted with dual responsibility. One is Minister of External Affairs as well as Minister of Parliamentary Affairs. So, and he has to leave it early. So, as we know, we have a very distinguished panelist. Among them, the chief guest of this webinar is आदरणीय वी मुरलीधरन जी. हम सबको पता होगा कि मुरलीधरन जी का केरल से ताल्लुकात रखते हैं. 1958 में आप कन्नूर जिला में जन्म लेने के पश्चात आपकी जितने भी पढ़ाई लिखाई हुए वो सब केरल में हुए, और आप ग्रेजुएशन आपने इंग्लिश लिटरेचर में किया है. और इंग्लिश लिटरेचर के समन्वय जो है हम अभी यहीं से देखने को लिए मिलता है. English has a direct also link with politics, and during his student career, he has been a student leader also. And I could understand, I could feel, and all of us should feel also in Kerala, if someone particularly those days, involving in student politics is a big challenge with a specific ideology. And I think he could successfully overcome, and had taken many responsibility during his student leadership. And subsequently, he joined Bharatiya Janata Party, and he held many positions in 1990 to 2002. He was the vice chairman of Nehru Yuva Kendra Sangathan, NYKS. And from 2002 to 2004, he was the Director General of Nehru Yuva Kendra. From April 2018, he elected to Rajya Sabha, and in June 2018 onwards, he became member of Committee on External Affairs, Consultative Committee of the Ministry of Railways, and also member of committees on rules. And also, he has very deep interest, and he is also a member, a port of the Pondicherry University. And at present, he has been looking after the Minister of External Affairs as well as the Minister of State for Parliamentary Affairs. So, a student leader, an academician, and also a struggling leader who has come across such much hurdles and experienced. And I think today we are very delighted to listen to him, particularly what government has taken actions and what the future course of action. So I request now, and before Honorable Minister deliver the lecture, I request the ARTS team, who we have for the information of Honorable Minister, that we have already developed a planned out and developed a bi-monthly magazine on diaspora issue, and the name is Namaste Bharat. I request to play out this video for 1 minute, then subsequently we'll listen to Honorable Minister. May I request the team to just play out this video, please? This should be launched very soon, maybe in a couple of weeks. Thank you. So this is our future initiative in the form of a magazine which will be circulated initially by through email, which is the e-magazine, and this would cater to a large segment of diasporic population across the world, and we are sure so this should help and further help in reconnecting with their roots. So with these words, I request Honorable Minister Sri Muralidharanji to deliver his chief guest address. Thank you, sir.
Sri Rajesh Kumar, President of AAJ, the General Secretary of AJ, Dr. Dheeraj Kumar Singh, the convener of the program, Dr. Mahib, who delivered the welcome address, the Registrar of JNU, Dr. Pramod Kumar, Professor Mohan K. Gautam, who delivered the keynote address, other dignitaries, Professor Ajay Kumar Dubey, Dr. Annapurna Pandey, Ambassador Anup Mudgal, Professor Rajneesh Shukla, Dr. BBL Madhukar, Dr. Neeraj Gupta, Ms. Michelle Thomas, Alok Chakrawal, Bhargav Mitra, Ramashankar Dubey, Dr. Priyabrata, other distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, namaskaram to all of you. It's a great pleasure to connect with you all under the aegis of the alumni of JNU, especially on a topic which is a very contemporary one. In fact, I must thank the AAJ and the Center for Diaspora Studies, Central University of Gujarat, for this opportunity given to me to present the steps taken by our government to address the concerns of the diaspora during the pandemic. Friends, as we all know, the COVID-19 pandemic poses an unprecedented challenge to all the countries of the world, including India. It has changed the way we used to live, interact, work, and socialize. Our healthcare and associated infrastructure has come under severe stress due to the sudden rise in requirement of isolation beds, ICU, and other life-saving facilities. Initially, even segregating the COVID patients from non-COVID patients at public health facilities posed a significant challenge. Further, India was not producing enough personal protection equipments or life-saving drugs and equipments like ventilators domestically. The disruption of global supply chain of PPEs, life-saving drugs and equipments due to the pandemic only aggravated the situation. The pandemic is a great threat to the livelihood security of millions of our people belonging to the lower middle income category, mainly due to the disruption of their normal economic activity. Because of the challenges posed by the pandemic, every sovereign government faced a dilemma, whether to concentrate on controlling the spread of disease or keep the economy open to ensure livelihood security of one's people. Our government, under the guidance of the Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, took a balanced approach of Jaan Bhi, Jahan Bhi, that is emphasis on both life and livelihood. India started its flight screening system from 17th January, that is a full 13 days before the first case of COVID-19 was detected in our country on 30th January. Screening and graded travel restrictions were increased step by step from mid-January up to March 11, when WHO finally declared COVID-19 to be a pandemic. Measures to propagate social distancing, including graded stoppage of international flights and suspension of visas, were implemented from March 11. And from March 24, a full nationwide lockdown was imposed. The lockdown was truly unprecedented. It included, for instance, stoppage of over 13,000 railway passenger services a day for the first time in India's history as a republic. We also stopped all flight services, most public transport, and so on. Even the WHO acknowledged that our public health responses were proactive, preemptive, and graded. And yet, we maintained continuity of essential services, power supply, water, energy, food products, banking, even delivering essential goods to the entire country. Such measures were inevitable for India because we had no other realistic choice. It's a measure of the acceptance of this need that all political parties in all of India's 28 states and union territories willingly enforced the lockdown. This is because all public authorities in India knew that there were immense variations in availability of medical services and infrastructure within the country. Therefore, an exponential rise in the infection rate could overwhelm our doctors and hospitals. This nationwide lockdown and close observation of the data helped us to upgrade capacity in terms of dedicated COVID hospitals, isolation beds, and ICU beds, ramp up production and procurement of essential PPE sets, ventilators, and testing equipments. Our private sector is being fully involved in the quest to make affordable local alternatives. Many of our Indian companies have been producing a large quantity of PPE kits. We have ensured a manifold increase in supply of oxygen for medical purposes since February 1, 2020. Expanded production of pharmaceutical supplies from antipyretic tablets to hydroxychloroquine to meet domestic needs, and we have started supplying them to the world. Our Ministry of Commerce has even liberalized exports of India-made ventilators to foreign countries. As we increase the capacity to test potential COVID-19 patients, Government of India also co-opted many private labs. Today, India is doing more than 1 million tests per day and is looking to increase it further. As on date, India has tested more than 5.51 crore samples. We are also developing Indian testing kits to meet escalated demand for more liberalized testing. Our government has also employed advanced technology to track and alert citizens of proximity to COVID-19 cases. The mobile app called Arogya Setu app is being extensively used by our people not only to protect themselves from accidental exposure to COVID-19 virus, but also to take precautionary measures in case of such exposure. As on date, there are 15.62 crore citizens using this app. The lockdown has not been easy or without socio-economic costs. For example, despite public assurances and exhortations from states and the union government, reverse migration from cities could not be stopped, especially in parts of North and West India. This started several days after the lockdown was initiated, but in response, thousands of relief camps and shelters were set up, with relief provided by state governments to more than 1.25 million people. Industry and NGOs were also actively involved in this effort. Nationwide food camps were organized and up to 7.5 million people were fed every day. In terms of mitigation, the Prime Minister's Garib Kalyan, that is welfare of the poor package, set out rupees 1.7 lakh crore to alleviate the situation of the poor and vulnerable, including farmers and laborers. This includes insurance for 2,20,000 healthcare workers, operationalized since 30th March. Food relief measures are being implemented to provide free food grains and lentils for 80 crore people. LPG cylinders have been provided to 8 crore poor households. Funds are being transferred through our direct cash transfer schemes to poor citizens, senior citizens, differently abled people, and to indigent widows. Some 2.8 crore people have received the first tranche of payments. Impoverished women holding Jan Dhan program accounts are also receiving funds through these direct transfer schemes. On top of this, our Prime Minister announced an economic stimulus package of rupees 20 lakh crore roughly, amounting to 10% of the GDP of our country to revive the economy with a special emphasis on MSMEs. Our government's effort in this direction is still continuing with every sector of the economy getting the due attention they need. Friends, the reason why I have presented all these facts before you is to draw your attention to the unprecedented challenge faced by the government due to the COVID-19 pandemic. While we were working on war footing to address and mitigate the COVID-19 challenges domestically, India never shied away from its responsibility towards its diaspora. As you may be aware, India has 13 million people who are working or living abroad. It has also a large number of people of Indian origin spread across the world. When the pandemic struck, naturally there was a panic among NRIs because of the fear of being stuck in a foreign land, separated from their family at a time of great uncertainty. In the Gulf countries, where a major chunk of our NRIs are blue-collar workers, faced the prospects of job loss. Many of them were also at the risk of violating local immigration norms, as their visa or work permit was getting over without any realistic possibility of renewal. On top of this, there were cases of emergency. People who went abroad on a short trip with limited money were stuck due to travel restrictions. Educational institutions and hostels were closed indefinitely, throwing the students' life out of gear. There were pregnant ladies who had planned their delivery in India but stuck in a foreign country due to travel restrictions. There were elderly people who had ran out of medicines and could not buy them locally due to either non-availability or exorbitant cost. So Government of India had a huge task at its hand, and we set out to solve the puzzle one piece at a time. Government of India worked with our partner countries in Gulf and other parts of the world to extend the validity of the existing visas, so that our people are not punished for something which is beyond their control. All major countries responded or reacted positively to India's request, as our country too had extended similar facilities for foreign nationals on reciprocal basis. in order to bring back our nationals stranded abroad, especially those who required evacuation for emergency reasons. Government of India initiated the Vande Bharat mission on May 7, 2020. With the launch of the Vande Bharat mission, the massive whole of government effort to respond to the COVID-19 situation entered a new phase. The Vande Bharat mission, or VBM, as it is known, is the largest and the most complex exercise ever undertaken by the government for repatriation of our nationals stranded overseas. It required very close coordination and a smooth flow of inter-ministerial communication involving the Ministry of External Affairs, the Ministries of Civil Aviation, Home Affairs, Health and Family Welfare, as well as the concerned state governments. These operations are being carried out through non-scheduled commercial flights operated by Air India Express, private chartered flights, ships of the Indian Navy, as well as by land from those countries which share land border with India. An online registration system was devised and was implemented through our missions and posts across the globe. Simultaneously, MEA developed a dynamic online portal called the VPAT Portal, on which requests received by the Indian missions from Indian nationals wishing to return were regularly updated. As on 10th September, MEA has received around 12 lakhs requests for repatriation. Initially, passengers were chosen on the basis of compelling grounds cited by them for travel, including those facing deportation by foreign governments, migrant workers, laborers who have been laid off, non-permanent residents or short-term visa holders faced with expiry of visas, those faced with medical emergency or seeking treatment for terminal illness, pregnant women or elderly, those required to return to India due to health of a family member, tourists, visitors stranded abroad, students if their educational institutions or hostels were closed, etc. To better coordinate with the concerned state governments, MEA also designated senior External Affairs Ministry officials as nodal officers to liaise with the state governments for coordinating flight arrivals directly with the state. The data captured by the MEA has been shared on real-time basis with the state government concerned. At the state government level, prior information on the number of passengers per flight and date of arrival along with their health status was a prerequisite to create adequate quarantine and testing capacity. Vande Bharat mission took this requirement also into consideration while scheduling the flights. As we speak, through VBM, a total of 13,74,237 Indians have returned to India under 6 VBM phases. Government of India has operated 2,432 Air India flights and 3,758 chartered flights so far to bring back our people stuck abroad. Of this, 1,27,685 have entered India by land from Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, and Myanmar. Through these flights, Kerala received the maximum returnees, and UAE is the #1 country from where the maximum stranded Indians have come. As we enter the phase 6 of VBM, Government of India is trying to schedule as many flights as possible in consultations with the Ministry of Civil Aviation for bringing maximum possible number of the stranded Indians back. MEA is closely working with the DGCA, Director General of Civil Aviation, to find innovative ways to cater to the requests of the stranded Indians expeditiously. A decision was taken to allow use of foreign carriers for bringing stranded Indians in remote areas of Latin American countries, Africa, and parts of Europe. To further ease international travel, flights from USA, France, Germany, UAE, UK, Afghanistan, and Maldives have been allowed on bilateral arrangements, more commonly known as bubble arrangements. Apart from Indian citizens, Government of India has also taken a more considerate approach towards the requirements of people of Indian origin, especially the overseas citizen of India, that is the OCI card holders. Government has allowed OCI card holders and few categories of foreign nationals to travel to India subject to certain conditions. These decisions have been taken based on the demand from our diaspora and with a view to reduce delays. Our missions and consulates have been facilitating their travel to India through VBM flights. Friends, I think I must conclude here. But before doing so, let me again re-emphasize that the battle against COVID is only half won. The fight is still on. While we have started relaxing most of our domestic restrictions, some critical ones still remain in place, and international air travel is one among them. But that doesn't mean that Government of India is not aware of the needs of our diaspora. So far, our government under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji has done whatever it could to our diaspora given the difficult circumstances we are in. Our government is open to doing more and welcome any suggestions in this regard with open arms. And that's the message that I would like you all to carry after today's interaction. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you very much, sir, for a very comprehensive outline of Government of India responded to the COVID-19 challenges both in India as well as abroad. So this is a wonderful outline delivered by our Honorable Minister. So how a strong government and a concerned government has taken so much of efforts for its citizens within and outside. So now, thank you very much, sir, for your kind words and very extensive and comprehensive outline. And already the program has been set, the ball has been rolled on. So now I would request Registrar of Jawaharlal Nehru University, Professor Pramod Kumar, who is also an academician and an environmentalist and a PhD from JNU in Environmental Science. I request to briefly welcome and give his remarks on this webinar. Professor Pramod Kumar ji. Professor Dr. Pramod Kumar, can you hear me? Dr. Pramod Kumar ji. प्रमोद जी हैं क्या लाइन में? प्रमोद जी,
I can't see him among the participants.
Atanu ji, you may call the next speaker, please.
Yes, yes. Anyway, so we'll go ahead with. So now the next speaker would be Professor Ajay Dubey. Professor Ajay Dubey is here. I think because he is parallel having one more webinar and which he is hosting in JNU. Professor Ajay Dubey sir is here. Thank you very much, sir, because I know you have a very great, very difficult time because managing two webinar at one point of time. So thank you so much, sir. Just to briefly introduce Speaker Professor Ajay Dubey, an old diaspora experts in India who is very reputed and very renowned. Perhaps all diaspora scholars, researchers, and also academicians they know in India as well as outside. Professor Dubey has been the founder president of ODI and presently the chairperson of Center for African Studies. And he has been continuously working for last many years from his student life and visited many countries, particularly different academic assignment. And of course, he has been my teacher as well, so mentor also. And his students are also in my department. And so it's a great pleasure to see teachers speaking in this webinar. and I think he has to manage another webinar also. So without wasting time, I request Professor Ajay Dubey. Sir, please give your remarks, your views.
Thank you, Dr. Atnu Mahapatra, for giving me time. Am I audible? Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me thank all the organizers, the office bearers of ours, honorable ministers, good friends, Gautam Mohan, and several of them who are there. As Dr. Atnu Mahapatra said, I am already in a webinar which was prefixed with speakers from 11 countries participating in this, which is going on concurrently. But I'm very happy to be here and share my thought on this issue, as was very rightly pointed out by our honorable minister, about several measures which Government of India has under pandemic. The measures are Vande Bharat and a few other. All that I would like to say as an academic that Government of India has provided all possible assistance to Indian diaspora. But Indian diaspora is a category which is much bigger than what we supported them through policy, which was highlighted. There are other policy support also which Government of India provided. Maybe because of the lack of time, we could not take all of them. Vande Bharat mission is just one of them and the largest one. But as we know, the Indian diaspora consists of two components: those who are Indian citizens and those who are not Indian citizens but are of Indian origins and settled all over the world. And in this pandemic situation where India was confronting to meet the requirement of its own people, its own migrant within the country in huge number, all caught unaware, it also has a sensitivity towards Indian diaspora at large, which consisted of Indian national as well as those who are of Indian origin, and it responded in a very calibrated way to them. For, of course, Indian nationals, there were two categories of them: one who were affluent, located in developed countries, and they could manage to stay for some time, and another one which was a very large number in Gulf region, and also in Southeast Asia, in Malaysia and some other country, Indonesia, where they were semi-skilled or low-skilled workers which were chucked out of the job, didn't have money to survive and pay for their own transport. And besides Government of India, the local organization helped them out in terms of their stay, in terms of their food, in terms of transporting them to a different location, and finally to Air India flights that was organized under Vande Bharat. But the second category of PIO was also catered by India in terms of providing medical assistance. Many of these Indian diaspora are located in Africa, Southeast Asia, in the Indian Ocean, and Government of India prioritized each country in terms of providing support of sending medicines in huge quantity to Mauritius, to some African countries, and External Affairs Minister was regularly tweeting and monitoring that how these diaspora dense countries are also catered to with the limited facility that India had. Therefore, it provided to the people of Indian origin in terms of sending medicine, in terms of sending kits for handling this, in terms of also sending some doctor teams and some nurses team to some of these diaspora dense countries. It in Africa, in some countries, and in other part of the world where it has established the telemedicine facilities beforehand, it utilized that and sent its team to train local people in medical medical facilities that can be extended to them, and medical support that can be provided to them. So Government of India catered to both categories of diaspora, those who are of Indian origin, where it was duty bound to provide assistance to them and to help them out. At the same time, it also catered to people of Indian origin who have become part of the larger Indian overseas diaspora policy, and they are seen more as a resource in terms of making India surface globally as a major world power, which the destiny is making it possible, and leadership of our Prime Minister Narendra Modi, which has established outreach and contact with most of the diasporic organization all over the world, and made diaspora as a major plank, as a major driver of India's foreign policy. And therefore diaspora of all varieties, in rich country, in poor country, with NRI, with PIO population, were targeted, of course, with the limited resource that India had. And therefore, it's a relationship under COVID that India reached out to them and is looking towards them to establish a more meaningful relationship emerging out of this pandemic, to see how this engagement, this connect, can be further strengthened by meeting each other expectation. I'll thank all of you for this time, and thank you so much for your attention.
I think I should also inform all the dignitaries and participants. Besides his primary responsibility as a Center for Chairperson of African Studies, he is also entrusted with many multiple responsibilities in JNU. He is also heading Director of Foreign Affairs to Foreign Students, and also Director of IQAC, Internal Quality Assurance Committee. So thank you very much, sir, for giving an outline how government has responded both both the PIU and the diaspora and the standard citizens. And thank you so much. I think you should also make him very busy and hurry. And now moving on to the next speaker, I think Dr. Pramod Kumar is available. Dr. Dheeraj, is Pramod Kumarji available? Can you hear me? Anyway, so we'll go ahead with.
I have to go to the other meeting.
Yeah, I know that. So equally as Professor Ajay Dubey, so similarly Dr. Annapurna Pandey Madam also, Professor Pandey is also be a speaker there in that webinar. And just briefly, I am giving the introduction of Professor Annapurna Pandey, who teaches cultural anthropology at the University of California, Santa Cruz. Dr. Pandey holds a PhD in sociology from Jawaharlal Nehru University, as I said earlier, because he is also a JNU alumni, and was a postdoctoral fellow in social anthropology at Cambridge, United Kingdom. Her research interests are diaspora studies, South Asian religion, immigrant women's identity, making in the diaspora in California. Most recently, her research work focuses very important to note that H1B and H4 visa holders in the context of the pandemic. So is the author of numerous essays on Indian women's activism, agency, entrepreneurship, and empowerment in India and Indian diaspora, and has lectured about them in several university and research forums all over the world. Dr. Pandey recently completed a senior Fulbright US scholarship working in India, and she is an accomplished filmmaker also. Homeland in the Heart, The Myth of Buddha's Birthplace, with Professor James Freeman, and Road to Juni, which is the latest one, most recent one, and it was also acclaimed in International Film Festival in 2018 and has received multiple national and international awards, this Road to Juni film also. So we have a wonderful a true cultural academician, Professor Annapurna Pandey, who is equally in academics as well as in culture, particularly in filmmaking and other also areas also. So I would request Professor Pandey to deliver her views. Thank you. Yeah, madam, please. Please unmute. Madam, please unmute your mic.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Much, Professor Mahapatra, for this generous introduction. First of all, I would like to thank Professor Mahapatra for contacting me. The Center for the Diaspora Studies, Central University of Gujarat, one of my most favorite places that I have visited already a couple of times. Rajesh Kumar, President of the Alumni Association of JNU, and all the other 5 organizations for putting together such a timely webinar. I am a very proud JNUite, and I take great pride because just introducing myself as a JNUite. So anything JNU related that you are doing, I'm always interested to learn more from you all. I would like to thank Honorable Minister Sri Murali Dharan, Minister of State for External Affairs and Parliamentary Affairs, for such an illuminatory talk, and I learned so much. Dr. Pramod Kumar, Registrar JNU, Professor Ramasankar Dubey, Vice Chancellor, Central University of Gujarat, Professor Ajay Dubey, who just spoke before me and very much laid out a kind of a wonderful way how to address the Indian diaspora. And of course, that Ambassador Anup Mudgal, Professor Mohan Gautam, among all other dignitaries. I teach cultures of India, Indian diaspora, and have been actively doing research on the Indian immigrants here in the USA. I have been studying the H-1B and H-4 visa holders who have come to the USA on work visa, known as the non-immigrants. And they have been affected the most during the pandemics. I would like to discuss that. So they have a maximum 6-year visa unless they get a green card being sponsored by their company. About 500,000 of them are about 500,000 non-immigrant visa holders are here in the United States. They are called the high-skilled workers, and 70% of them are from India. India is the highest contributor and subscriber to this kind of, these immigrants, the non-immigrants rather, coming to United States. And they come with their families, their wives and children. They are known as the dependents. H-4 visa holders. Their number is close to about 1 million. So imagine about 4 million Indians of Indian origin, and about 1 million of them are in this kind of floating the floating situation, because they are known as non-immigrants and are working for the United States in various companies. The companies you name, Facebook, Google, among others. So, and they contribute tremendously to the prosperity of the United States. And one interesting and also this interesting fact is these H-4 visa holders cannot work in this country as dependents. They don't have a social security card. They don't have a driver's license. They cannot even have a bank account. They don't have a credit card. And most of these women, educated professionals who are coming from India on H-4 visa, they become confined to their homes and they become non-entities. And their visa is called depression visa. Many studies have been done. And lately in 2015, Obama government introduced H-4 EAD to make some of them eligible to work only if their spouses have I-140 in the process of getting their green card. So a majority of the H-4 visa holders who are scattered with their spouses in IT industry all over the country are still not working. During the pandemics, the H-1B workers have been affected the most, along with their H-4 dependents. Even though we say that the technology industry has not been affected that much, but we see that there has been a huge job loss, and United States now is kind of, experiencing unemployment about 10%. It was 15%, never heard of since the Depression, but now about 10%, and still, and I think majority of these H1B visa holders have lost their jobs. And this is where, and another issue here I want to bring to you, that is the children who come as dependents being born in India, that they are also H4 visa holders. They suddenly, at the age 21, they become foreigners. They become illegals in this country. So they age out. So they have to go back to India to get their F1 if they want to come back as students. So this is also another issue that, and this happens with the, this is tied to a very important fact that the people who come on H1B, they apply for their green card, and they are on the kind of, and there is a huge backlog for the green card, because India produces the maximum high-tech workers coming to United States, but only America issues 140,000 green cards every year. Out of 140,000, each country has a 7% quota. And in that quota, India's number is very small. And even though India contributes the maximum workers, the people who get the visa, their number is very, very small. So as a backlog, there has been a lot of debate going on that. So the children have suffered the most. So here my humble submission to the Indian External Affairs Ministry to see to it, if the children, the adults, for them, America is their home. When they go back to India, how their visa process can be smoothened, because we here, I have interviewed hundreds of these students who are brought up here, go to India, get a F1, and how to kind of make their experience little better, and how to see that they don't feel unwanted going back to India. And also here I would say that if India can intervene in any way, that with the USCIS, that United States the immigration agency, that how to kind of create a kind of a better system without using the 7% quota, eliminating the quota system, that would be a great help. I know our Prime Minister Modi has a fantastic relationship with President Trump and the American government. So it will be wonderful if there's something, there can be a liaison, can be a collaboration. I hope the minister is here, that I'm just kind of, because I am studying them, I have been interviewing them. I think I am also part of many of these activist groups that who are making cases, who are doing demonstrations, who are kind of, making a case for themselves for living here for 10, 15 years. Imagine for them to get a green card, it will be 150 years. So they will be dead. And many of them have passed away in the process of waiting for the green card. And in this context, I would like to say just a few words how the pandemic has really affected and what the Indian government has done. That since the first week of March 2022, the USA has been in a limbo overnight. Millions of people have lost their jobs. The it's been the unparalleled, and the kind of that we see that it has been unbelievable that the unemployment rate has been high. Many high-skilled professionals have lost their jobs. Among them, the high-skilled foreigners known as H1B holders have been the hardest hit, and they are in a very precarious state. They are not entitled to any unemployment benefit. They are the highest contributors, by the way, to the remittance back to India. So they are not entitled to any kind, even though they are paying taxes, they don't get any benefit, unlike the citizens or the green card holders. So their spouses, even with legal permission to work, called EAD, they are also lose their jobs as along with H-1B, because their visa is tied to H-1B. So India's External Affairs Ministry has initiated this Vande Bharat mission. According to our Sanjay Panda, the outgoing Consul General of India in San Francisco, 40,000 Indian nationals have been registered. There have been a huge kind of waiting list, but India has done its best in just bringing back these Indian citizens. And interestingly, and very kind of, and I really want to thank the External Affairs Ministry and the Prime Minister, our Honorable Minister is here. On May 22nd, 2020, Government of India issued a memo that OCI cases also will be entertained, that the children who are OCI being born here, they also can accompany their parents. This is just a fantastic move. But I would like to, and then also giving priority, as the minister said, giving priority to the elderly, to the medically, to the sick, and to also to the visitors who visited. So, but I really want to bring to your attention a very important issue that I am working on is domestic abuse and domestic violence, especially among the H4 dependents. But, you will be really surprised that between 2017 to 2019, the ministry has received about 4,000 complaints, most of them from USA and UK ministry, to kind of, that for domestic violence cases. So the ministry provides information. The ministry also kind of, provides some sort of finance. And also there is a bill now continuing. The bill is now issued. The bill is now on the floor that in the parliament to kind of, how to address this issue. But I really want to make a case here by talking to various organizations and various people who have been suffering, that the ministry should make sure that they can help with the background checks of the people who are already been convicted in the United States. So doing a background check and just having posters in the visa offices, passport offices, so that way people know that these people, these predators, they go back, marry young women, bring them back, treat them badly, and they are stranded, they're abandoned with their children, and they're forcefully deported back to the country. So there is a background check that I would recommend that for the ministry to really take into account. And also also the people who are coming to this country as students, as also young spouses, that what are their rights. If the External Affairs Ministry makes sure to kind of popularize the rights of these people, that kind of as Indian citizens, and also what are the opportunities available here, that would be a big help, because these people come, they are confined to their homes, they do not have any way to learn about their rights, they are kind of the opportunities they have. So I would urge that there's this connection that between the India and US agencies to be much more stronger. So that way, that kind of the people who are suffering silently, their issue will be addressed. There are numerous instances now that the bride's family are under pressure to not press charges or report the police. So the role of External Affairs Ministry is to educate the young people, the elderly, about their various roles. For example, there is an act called Violence Against Women Act 1994, introduced by now the Vice President Biden, which was made into a law during the Clinton's regime, but which has really gone through several amendments. It applies to abused partners, both men and women, elderly parents who come from India and are abused, and also adult children who are abused. So these issues, if we can bring to make kind of to the public knowledge, to make it more popular, more accessible, so that way people who are coming to this country, they come with open eyes, that what are their rights, how they can take advantage of their rights. So because many of these H4 visa holders, mostly women, have to go back as their visa expires, but they have to leave their children who are US citizens. So when the H1B spouse would intentionally not help with the extension of visa, and in a few cases, each stopped the green card process. Here, the External Affairs Ministry can help. So with this, my humble submission, I really kind of find it such a wonderful opportunity. Thank you again, Professor Mahapatra. Thank you, Aj. Thank you, all the organizations, for this timely webinar. And I would love to collaborate with you all. Thank you.
Atnuji, please unmute your mic.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am, for your wonderful outlining the issue of H1B, your concern of H4 visa, and certainly we will get it through. We'll get it communicated to the ministry, because the minister was already here, and we will get, because the report will be submitted soon. And also you talked about how best the government has, Indian government has responded, and the concern and the issues which were particularly the domestic abuse, the violence, that is a major concern also. And there is a check which is required, particularly to avoid such kind of violence and domestic abuse. So that would help. So certainly this would be, can be put it in the policy making of the government of India, and we'll try to get it communicated to the concerned, to the Minister of External Affairs, and we'll try the best policy can be evolved. Thank you very much, ma'am, for your kind words. And it's very, very early morning there, and you have joined, spared time for us. So it's a great, we are very much indebted to you. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.
So now moving ahead. So now I request the guest of honor Ambassador Anup Mudgalji, and who is sir. Thank you so much, sir. So sir has been here for a long time. Thank you so much. And he represents now Antarashtriya Sahyog Parishad, and particularly his interest on academics. And he has started under his leadership in ARSP. He has started the DRRC, Diaspora Research and Resource Center, which is looking after as the chairman of that center, particularly right now. And Ambassador Mudgal, a member of Indian Foreign Service, and retired in 2016 as India's High Commissioner to Mauritius. As a part of his diplomatic career, spanning 32 years, he served thrice at the headquarters of Ministry of External Affairs, handling relations with India's neighborhood, Asian region, Russian Federation, and some countries of Central and Eastern European, as well as issues relating to human resource development. A part of his 8 assignments abroad, Ambassador Mudgal served in different capacity at the Indian Mission in Mexico, including NAFTA matters, Peru, from former Yugoslavia, and Belgium, EU matters, Germany, Austria, and work relating to IAE, UNIDO, UNODC, UNOSO, and UNICETRAL, and Mauritius, including IORA. So one important thing which I should also inform here is academics, and why I said, because his interest is also there is maritime security and defense, and also ocean blue economy, trade policy and market access, technology transfer, adaptation applications, energy and transport, human resource management, including skills, because he has served in various capacities and various countries. But recently, because I had also had an opportunity to listen to you on blue economy last year, and sir, I also inform you that we have started a program on maritime security, including cyber security also, in Central University of Gujarat. So I think it's wonderful, and you can also in future also we can seek your guidance and support in terms of your academic future academic endeavor. So without wasting time, I would request Ambassador Anup Mudgal to please deliver your address. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Professor Mahapatra. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. You see, since you mentioned about blue economy and your interest in blue economy, we in fact have taken out our second report on blue economy, which is a sectoral report. In fact, that report was released by Honorable Minister himself just before the pandemic, in fact. And also, I am a member of a steering committee under Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council on blue economy. And that report has in fact come out only about a week ago. And now we are working on a third phase of our blue economy report, and that is between Ficky, Terry, and there's a German organization called CAS. So Atanu, I'll be very happy to come and discuss about blue economy and maritime security, since you mentioned that specifically. Now you see, after listening to the Honorable Minister, Professor Dubey, Professor Pandey, and other speakers, I think most of the issues have already been covered. I was wondering, how can I add value to what they have already said? Since you mentioned, I head Diaspora Research and Resource Center at ARSP. I think this will be relevant for me to say something about ARSP and DRRC. In fact, Antarashtriya Sahyog Parishad is a non-government, non-profit organization, which in fact has been working on diaspora matters for over 40 years now. Atanu, there was hardly any setup in the official circles 40 years ago for specifically dealing with diaspora issues beyond the consular and passport matters. But ARSP was already working on diaspora issues, both in the NRI area and also in the PIO area. And that experience of ARSP, in fact, one of your speakers mentioned about that committee which was set up to go into the diaspora matters under Dr. L.M. Singhvi, which in fact made some recommendations, and those recommendations then led to a lot of changes in our policy to deal with diaspora, including the OCI, PIO, and the Pravasi Bharatiya thing. And then later on, a lot of things I can go over those issues, but that will require a separate presentation. Now, DRRC was set up in ARSP with the support of Ministry of External Affairs, primarily to upgrade the ARSP's engagement with diaspora with a specific research content. That is what we are doing there. Now you see, having dealt with diaspora when this pandemic occurred, of course, DRRC and ARSP had to kind of stay ahead of the curve and start thinking how this pandemic is going to impact diaspora and what kind of problems they may face and what would need to be done by the government in terms of policy adjustment and adaptation for helping those people. We under the ARSP, in fact, we have organized a series of sectoral dialogue with diaspora in Americas, diaspora in Gulf, diaspora in the Girmitia countries, and diaspora in the Indian Ocean region. Now, what I'll do, because since most of the issues have already been covered by Honorable Minister and Professor Dubey, I will try to share with you what the diaspora shared with us in our series of conferences as to how COVID is going to impact and what needs to be done. As the Honorable Minister said, the battle is just halfway. A lot of implications are still in the waiting, and we need to be prepared for that. Now, first is, people might sometimes think that this is the first crisis that we are facing, or This is the first time that we have evacuated Indians from other regions. I would take them back. In fact, it's a long story, because when we talk about demographic dividend, we in fact long ago we had been talking about the possibility of India becoming the skilled manpower supplier for the global industry. That is what happened, in fact, in the last about, though the Indian diaspora story goes back by centuries, rather, I can take you back to the Kalinga times. But I will come to the later post-independence period. Over last 30 years, in fact, a large number of Indian skilled, unskilled, semi-skilled professionals have traveled all over the world. As a result, today we have almost 31, 32 million members of diaspora, which includes the NRIs and PIOs, spread over more than 100 countries. And this diaspora has, in fact, become a very, very important soft power bridge for India. They are playing a bridge role in terms of politics, in terms of culture, in terms of people to people contact, in terms of economy, in terms of technology, in terms of technology transfers. And we are so proud of what the diaspora, Indian diaspora, has done for the global community and also for India. But then, when you have such a large diaspora, and when you have such expectation from them, on the other hand, we also need to be prepared just in case there is a situation of crisis and we have to help our diaspora spread all over the world. In fact, I remember, we started dealing with diaspora crisis from the Gulf War. We dealt with Gulf War I, Gulf War II, Libya, Lebanon, all those crises. We moved large number of people back to India under those operations also. But the question is, this crisis as we are dealing with today, is qualitatively different from those crises. This is absolutely unprecedented. You see, in most of the earlier evacuations, though the numbers were very large, we ran into millions of people who were brought back to India, but it was mostly a two-way traffic. You see, there was a place from where we were supposed to bring people back, and they had to be brought back to India. And once they touched India, they had, a fallback position to look after themselves. But this is the first time that we are facing a crisis where literally every country is suffering the consequences. As a result, when you have to manage, say, large number of source points for evacuation of Indians, believe me, it's not an easy task. It's a Herculean task. It's very complex because you are not only dealing with a crisis, but also there are local laws, there are local restrictions, there are local regulations. Now, once you combine all those things, it is not easy task to mobilize people from so many countries in such large number. I think India has done probably, I would say, amongst the best in terms of bringing our people back to India. This is an extraordinary job which we have performed, and I'm sure we should be proud of that. Let me tell you, in terms of evacuation, in case of disaster relief, world over today, India is seen as a role model because we have shown to the world we have not only evacuated our people from the crisis zone, but we have also evacuated people, nationals of other countries, especially neighboring countries, who may not have the capacity to do it. So I think in terms of the evacuation part, we have done fairly well, though when you have diaspora exceeding 30 million, dealing with that number is not easy. There would always be people who would not be able to reach out, who would not be able to get assistance in time, or who might really get caught in complex web of regulations. I heard Professor Pandey mentioning about the OCI card holders. In one of our conferences, in fact, this point was mentioned because when we had to stop the foreigners coming to India, foreigners means the OCIs are also foreigners. In fact, they are foreign nationals, and they got caught in this process. And there were many cases where the parents were Indian passport holders and the children were foreign passport holders, but with OCI. Now, with the children, the parents also got stuck. So when this was brought to the attention of the ministry, they immediately rectified this and responded to this. I have been in touch with our missions in many countries because we were receiving some distress calls in India, and knowing that I am from foreign service, so they were telling me, can you please contact your particular embassy to find assistance for their loved one who was stuck there. And whenever I contacted them, they knew the person I was talking about. They knew the difficulty the person was facing in that country, and they came forward to help. You see, in fact, one of the earlier speakers mentioned about, the embassies are not proactive. I think there was a time when this opinion was probably right to some extent, but since the start of the PBD process and other engagement tools, today the embassies cannot stay silent if a member of Indian diaspora is suffering. Let me tell you my own experience. I was in many countries. Because of the proactive involvement and action by the Indian missions abroad, Indian origin foreigners would come to us for help. Can you imagine? I have had situations where, in fact, a foreign national but of Indian origin got into difficulty and their own embassy was not able to help. They came to us and we helped. So I think when it comes to the embassies being proactive, the embassies are doing, I think, what they can. You have to remember these things require tremendous amount of resources. And in many cases, our embassies are working with very, very limited resources. We have to understand we are still a developing country. We cannot really pump in money without any limits whenever we need. So we have limited resources, but within the limited resources, I think the amount of job our people have done is absolutely extraordinary. And for the Ministry of External Affairs runs what is called a situation room, which in fact I set up long ago. It was almost about 20 years ago. And this situation room, even 20 years ago, was able